Okay, I think we are, and we are live. Yes, we are live. Welcome, everyone. We are streaming live here with Andy from the KO team. Hi, Andy. Thank you for being here. And
Hello.
Tom, the artist we're going to be talking with in today's Behind the Screens. So before we start, I just want to pass on the word to Andy, who's going to give us an introduction about KnownOrigin.
Hi, hello everybody. Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders of KnownOrigin. KnownOrigin's a art marketplace. We've been going just over 2 years, and we've actually met Tom in person and in Manchester, which is the home of KnownOrigin. But we've got over 370 artists, I believe, from today on the platform, and we're selling digitized art and NFTs in all different formats, including videos and stuff like that. And we love what we're doing, and we've started to get involved more in series and writing more content. We're trying to get the community more involved in the platform. We've got a presence on Discord and Telegram, and we're always welcoming artists to apply and collectors to check out the site. It's knownorigin.io. So the best thing you can do is just go check it out, follow the links, read the content, listen to talks like this, and let us know what you think.
Thank you so much, Andy, for this introduction. And yes, I will just follow up on that, saying that we are very active on Discord. So join us, and we'll love to hear from you, and also on our Twitter channel. So this initiative, wonderful, started because we are very happy to connect with artists and learn more about what they do. And so without further ado, I will start my conversation with Tom, and I will welcome everyone watching to send through their questions, and we'll be happy to chat with you guys live. Thank you so much, Andy, for being here, and we'll stay tuned with the KO team. Thank you.
See you all soon.
Here we go. Hey, Tom, very nice to speak to you tonight. Thank you
Likewise.
for making it.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So yes, I guess today we're going to be discussing about currencies and the design and what your art is all about. But before we dive into this interesting conversation that I'm so eager to learn more about what you do behind the screens, I would like for you to give us a few words about your background and how you got started as an artist in the crypto space.
Specifically in the crypto space, my introduction was actually attending CoinFest last year in Manchester, and that's where I met the KnownOrigin team in person, and that was my introduction to crypto art. And a few years prior, someone had told me about a trader friend had told me about rare pepes and all the rare pepes he was collecting and trading, and I completely ignored it. I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. And, which I should not have done. And yeah, no, just how it worked out. A year and a half later, I was just curious. I went with a completely open mind, and I went into a little room where Andy and the team were talking about their project, and it was kind of a conference situation. And yeah, I was just so excited. I was blown away that that art on the blockchain and it's a completely new form of art and a new form of showcasing art, and a completely new platform for artists, and a completely fresh slate for art, I think, which is, you know, dream come true for an artist.
Yeah, of course. I think it's the crypto space is very refreshing for anyone that maybe is not so familiar with it, because there's so many opportunities to be more independent as an artist and to really put your work out there. But I'm curious to know how you started your journey as a designer. You know, you design banknotes, and I guess everyone is so curious to know what is the path that you've taken, and you know, that led you to where you are today.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I've always been an artist. from very young, I knew that's what I wanted to do in one form or another. And I've always been interested in money. The touch of it, the smell of it, the feel of it, and how it looks, because they're fascinating little printed objects, these banknotes. Anyway, I just started off as a hobbyist, really, and I was making these designs that resembled the designs on money. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I just thought they were pretty images. And somebody saw this, and somebody from a company, one of the big four companies that prints money for most of the world's central banks, and I was headhunted into the industry, and that's where I learned, formally how to design money. And it's a fascinating world because it's probably the most complex printed product in the world. It makes use of all these different complex processes in it in order to make these banknotes fungible, i.e., the same, which is like, that's the essence of why we trust money, because it is all the same and it all looks the same, and it's all produced to very high specifications. In order to do that, the protocol of the designer is crazy and never ending and fascinating, and you could spend a lifetime in that industry and still have more stuff to learn. So yeah, I left there with as an artist, inspired to really take what I'd learned and create with it and see where it can go, because it's underexploited, and there isn't really anyone in the world who's doing what I'm doing. There are a couple of I suppose people from the industry who work there, and then they're pottering away making artwork, but I would call myself a little bit more relentless in my designs, and it was only entering the crypto market space, the crypto art space, that I found a market for this, and that's that's where the rubber met the road.
Yes, that's very fascinating, and yeah, for sure, there's no many artists as you, I guess, sharing the design of such specific way of creating art.
It's
I know
not
that
just
you.
digital design. Sorry to interrupt. I was just
No,
going to
no,
say.
go for it.
Well, I
Please
mean,
correct me, because yes, I think it's good that you describe what you do in your own words.
well, it just occurred to me that putting something on the screen, this is called behind the screen. So I was just got that thought in my head. Putting something on the screen and making it pretty is very, very different from actually printing it. And behind me is an example of some notes that I printed, and getting that onto printing plates and sort of producing it as close to real money as possible is something, is a little bit, that's something completely different. That's like another world. That my foot is in a completely other world aside from the tokenized versions of the stuff that I'm doing. So I'm sort of printmaker and also tokenizer of digital art. So it's yeah, I've a foot in both worlds.
No, that's very fascinating. And, I know that you've been commissioned also banknotes with original design, like portraits of collectors of fellow artists. Um, how do you see an economy adopting customized banknotes in the future?
Wow. Customized banknotes. Well, thinking about it, actually, I mean, they already do, and there is a history of people printing their own money in the wake of the sort of global financial crisis that we're in. There's actually been communities that have started printing their own money, and this always happens in depression situations, and when the economy goes south, when fiat money is scarce, but people still want to value their labor and have something tangible to exchange, then they resort to printing their own money. And I think I heard a couple of months ago there was a town in Italy doing it, as communities in the US. But I mean, this has always happened in Germany during hyperinflation. all the towns printed their own money. It's called Notgeld, and they're quite colourful actually. They're quite and they're really cheap if you wanna buy these notes from 1920s. And thinking about it, another example would be in the 19th century in the UK. Actually, it was a pretty decentralized financial system because you had local banks issuing their own money, and they would have, you know, pictures on them of, you know, local things like the local shepherd or whatever with his sheep. And yeah, and these were printed everywhere. And it's only in recent times where we've sort of had, you know, you know, this kind of central authority, you know, issuing, you know, one design. So yeah, but I just started this branded social token, and that's branded social tokens is kind of a version of that, of, you know, someone issuing their own branded currency. And the idea with that is that it would be a design that I would do in collaboration with other people. And then at some point when I've got enough designs together, I could print them all to the high specification that I print at. And so it would be this sort of socially determined currency artwork. It's sort of it's a bit of a unique experiment in art and printmaking, but also involving, because there will be NFT versions of these banknotes as well. So an entire current economy adopting a digital, sorry, customizable banknote. I'm not so sure. Like an entire country. That could be crazy.
Yeah, that would be pretty unusual, I would say, for what we are used to see. But do you think that depending by who's actually been printed or designed on the notes, you know, the value of the actual banknote, or again, I'm gonna say design, but you correct me there. Do you think that is gonna influence the value of the actual currency if in an hypothetical world where we're gonna be trading with those notes that you create?
Well, yeah, it'd be interesting if people use my notes to trade with. Funny story is that it's not answering a question, but I just thought of this. I remember, like, back in the day when I was a kid, I would print my own notes in the playground and like hand them out. And I came back years later and they were still being like passed around. It was like this informal currency in the playground, which is just insane, right? I couldn't have been older than like 12 years old, and here we are now. So I just remembered that now. Yeah, the portrait on a banknote. I mean, it's integral to banknote design because the idea of a human face on a banknote, it's the thing that gives money. It allows us to trust it, and money is, you know, it relies on trust. Our money system relies on trust. Even, I have to say, cryptocurrency, we like to call it trustless technology, but, you know, in reality, if no one trusts something, then it can't be bought into, it can't be invested in. So yeah, money is totally reliant on trust, and a human face is probably the most you know, trustable thing there is, relatable thing. And since ancient times, I mean, you know, the Roman Empire would stamp his face on money to lend it his literal stamp of approval. So yeah, I think it is integral to the value. Whether different portraits, you know, have different values, it's interesting because in our minds we have an idea. Probably more people know U.S. presidents from like their value on money. We all know that a Benjamin Franklin is $100, and we all know that Washington is on you know, $1 bill, and we have that idea of value in our mind, just because these faces are so they're so ingrained in our view of the world and our psyche. You could take that Benjamin Franklin portrait on the $100 bill, show it to anyone, show it to a tribe in the Amazon, and they'd know what it represents. You know, they know that it represents It's the epitome of capitalism, that image.
And it's interesting to see, we as humans, we give attributes to those figures, right, that we associate with value, and what that represents, whether that is collectively chosen to be that way, or if it's kind of imposed, by institutions, for example. And that's, hence my question, like, would a Trump banknote be more or less value than a Tom banknote, for example? I'm
No one
trying to
wants
be
a Tom
ironic here, but
no one wants my face on a banknote.
why not? You never know. Who knows what the future will, reserve for us.
I mean, we in our society, we're a liberal society, so we value, creativity and we value, inventiveness and science, and we put those people on our notes rather than emperors and dictators, for the most part. But yeah, I mean, there are examples of currencies being issued and the public just flatly rejects them because of the person that's on the note. It's just doesn't really fly with the public. So it's a public facing product. So it has to be sensitive to the to the culture, as it represents. It's a fundamental touchstone to a culture as a banknote. But my realm is art, so those rules don't apply.
That's true. We have a question from Andy asking you, Tom, what is your favorite ever real banknote and person featured on them?
Oh, I like that question. My favorite ever banknote design, and if there's any banknote collectors listening to this, they're gonna be cringing.
That's a Frish's advice now.
No, my favorite banknote design is the £50 note that was issued in the early 90s. And the reason for that is that when I was young, when I was that age, £50 note was so rare, and to hold one was a very special experience. And I'd only see these banknotes being exchanged between adults, looking up, being exchanged between their hands. And there's John Hublon on the back, who was, I think, the first governor of the Bank of England. So it's self-congratulatory, because it has the founding member, one of the founding members of the Bank of England. So it sort of says, we are the Bank of England. This is our money. You must use it. And the banknote is so English. It's so well designed. It's so well thought out. Every little centimeter is just English, and the design came from the bank's desire to update its currency, and it wanted to Americanize its currency. So half the currency is like the steely gray, slightly US banknotes, kind of black and white, and the other half is this typical British or English psychotic red, and it just says everything to me about British culture at that time, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you go about choosing the currency design? When you create your own, how do you go about choosing the subject, but also the design that you're going to be engraving, digitally engraving on those notes?
Well, my original intention when I got out of the banknote industry, one of my first intentions was sort of go to the crypto space and see if my skills, my experience could be used to somehow elevate or amplify cryptocurrency's brand, because we love to talk about this word adoption in cryptocurrency. And as I've already said, it relies on trust. And I know how to turn a piece of paper into something that's trusted and liked and hopefully nice to look at. So I thought this would be a great thing to introduce to the crypto space in some form or another. I was completely open to creating some kind of product, and or like a paper wallet, something like that. And I was inspired by, whenever you see things mentioning cryptocurrency in the media, you always see these images of like gold and silver coins with Bitcoin on them, or Litecoin or Ethereum, and it's kind of ridiculous in a way, because cryptocurrency has got nothing to do with gold and silver, and it's not physical. So the reason why that's there is because we as humans, we want something that at least feels tangible, or has the potential to be tangible, so we can value it and so we can trust it. So it seems to impart the stability, and that's exactly what I could do with my skills. And so when I got to crypto art, the first series that I made was all people who acknowledged cryptocurrency in a positive way, and that's where my intentions were, to kind of celebrate and amplify cryptocurrency's brand, and expand the brand into something that feels established, you know. And that first series, actually the first sort of banknote design that I put on KnownOrigin, featured Julian Assange. Of course, WikiLeaks, you know, is aligned with the crypto space, because they're hackers, and they release information, and it stands for truth, and, you know, leaking information, and that sort of formed the whole meaning of the series. And it made itself, you know, the other portraits that I chose, they're all people who were associated with releasing truth, exposing lies, and who all celebrated cryptocurrency in their own way. And so it sort of formed this story, and that's how I choose the portraits on say like a series of you know, quote unquote, note designs. There's a story there, and it's usually there to celebrate and affirm, you know, the brand of the currency. And after that, I did a series that was all based on DAI, you know, the US dollar stable coin, and that led to sort of inquiry into US currency design and touch points of US history and culture, good and bad. Not all the people on these designs are, you know, good people. But it was there to sort of create the story. And yeah, so that's how I go about it, really.
That's interesting to know what informed your decision in terms of what to have on those notes, and, you know, sort of creating the first series. But I also know that you print money, right? Because I can see them also on the back there. So we actually have a question here from Andy again, saying, is paper currency dead, and hence your skill set the last of its generation? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I just want to be clear. I don't print money. I print art that looks like money, because money it's dangerous to call something money. But yeah, I do think that cryptocurrency, or sorry, banknotes are kind of on the way out. So it's probably just as well. If I started doing this 10 years, I think it would have caused all sorts of problems. If I ever had got a level of notoriety, you know, I'm almost thankful that central banks, I think every central bank now is considering a digital currency. And from what I hear, Europe will probably be the first to do it. So yeah, I think cash is on the way out. And it's probably just as well.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, the design is rare, scarce, or unique, hence non-fungible, right? And that's what you create as an artwork. But the concept of banknotes, it is fungible, right? Because it's meant to be something that you trade for something else. So it is the same value across each note. How do you leave that, you know, as an artist creating such art? How do you leave that fungible, non-fungible, you know, comparison? Because the art that you create, it is a non-fungible token, so it's unique. But at the same time, there's a concept behind on fungibility. So I'm curious to know from you, how did you develop that concept, or if there's a meaning behind, or what that represents from you as from an artist standpoint?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, the simple way of dividing between what I do and fungible banknotes is utility. So, banknotes are a product, just like any other product. They have a specific design specification and a specific use case. What I do is I sort of bring all the banknoteness out of something and condense it into my art. So the NFTs, they appropriate all the elements of currency design, in order to tell a story, to capture an idea. So yeah, it's a really difficult question. I mean, all my work is limited edition, and the thing with banknotes is that they're the opposite. They are very not limited edition. They can be printed on demand, and my work kind of stops with me. If the head of a central bank dies, then the money just keeps on getting printed. The artist I would guess, is the only person who can take the fungible and make it non-fungible. And the image that I've got in my head is, I guess, that it's every artist's dream is to like go into a restaurant and pay with a napkin that they just signed. So they've taken a fungible napkin, and by virtue of the fact they signed it, it becomes non-fungible. You see what I mean? So I guess that's the special role of an artist, is to turn things into something that is non-fungible. There is a whole genre of art that uses currency, and there are people who deface currency, who cut banknotes up and make collages out of them. And I don't fit into that genre, even though my design looks like money. It's completely original. It's designed with all this knowledge behind it, and so there's nothing, there's no appropriation behind it, so it doesn't fit into the same genre. So what I'm doing really has more in common with design, or what I have done. What I'm going to do, what I'm increasingly doing, is moving away from the banknote format, for that reason, and really creating things that look like art, more like artwork, but still retain the essence of money design. And banknote design I feel like it's kind of like my introduction into the crypto art space in these first 12 or 18 months, however long it's been. But now I think my work is kind of expanding out into bigger, bolder formats, and I'll still make use of banknote design. It will be a backbone of my work, but I think it will probably move away from this sort of very product-like. It's almost like a product like NFT, and into something that looks more like a full standalone artwork.
And another question I had for you: do you ever see your banknotes becoming fungible in terms of the design as well?
Being utilized in
as money? Yes.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, I think this question and the last, they cut right to the core of like, what is art? As art as an investment is almost a form of money, and then it you can walk through a metal detector in an airport with a Picasso, and move $1 million from here to there. You can't do that necessarily with diamonds. You can't do that necessarily with gold, but you can with art. And art is an attractive form of money for that reason. It's so movable. And many artists have been inspired by this weird thing of art and money. When art is commodified in such a way, then it does all become about money. Where does it end? And Warhol, he screen printed the dollars, and then because he screen printed the dollars, and because it's Warhol, it's much more than the face value of the things that he screen printed, and
it's like it nearly becomes a brand, in itself.
Right,
Hence
right.
fungible currency, in a way.
That's what it would have to do. It'd have to be a brand. I really hope that my social token, when it's printed, will become something like that. It'll be very limited edition, but it will still have that form of the banknote, and but it will be socially determined, sort of have all these different elements that banknotes don't normally have. But it would be nice. It would be nice if something sort of circulated, just like it did in the playground when I was 12 years old or whatever. Go full circle.
Tokens.
Yeah.
Since you've spoken about your own social token, which I definitely want to hear a bit more about that. On the back of COVID-19, we've seen fiat currency sort of fluctuating and going up and down, but pretty much losing their value. Whether in the crypto space, we've seen Bitcoin and Ethereum, especially over the last couple of days, sort of having a huge spike. So what's your vision in terms of the crypto market, and what is your influence, since you are now showing on social media and we're having this conversation around currencies? What's your vision on the ongoing market and on the future? Can you share your thoughts about what you see? What's your forecast in terms of the value of cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, I think we're just getting started with crypto art specifically. It's interesting. I think, as I was asked a similar question on a podcast pretty much a year ago to the day, and things have just changed so much in the space of 12 months. I think what's happened recently is that we've turned a corner in terms of not just in terms of market value, but in terms of how crypto art is seen and viewed and disseminated. And the reason I say that we turn a corner is the recent sale of the red pixel and the transparent pixel, and that to me represents the first inkling of that kind of, how can I say, that kind of conceptualism finding its way into the crypto art space. And that's when things go from, sort of signifies things moving from craft into something conceptual, which is closer to what the currency of the art market, the wider art market. So I think that is quite an interesting development, and that alone will allow crypto art to kind of be picked up and understood by people who have up till now ignored it. And I think that will definitely get some attention when people see, high 5-figure sums being exchanged for a transparent pixel. That could be kind of interesting amongst legacy art.
Yeah, you touched on a very interesting topic. I think last week, what we witnessed in the crypto art space was pretty unusual, I would say, but wasn't necessarily unexpected. And I think it's interesting to state that it will definitely be part of the history of crypto art. And I liked your view that conceptual art could trigger, it could make the real art world turn and look at these as a way of actually paying more attention. Nevertheless, I would state that there's much more that the space can give.
Oh
And
yeah.
this is really much about making a noise in a very smart way, but just getting started, just, putting a red flag saying, this is happening, and start paying some attention to the space. That's how I read it. But what's your understanding as an artist, when you see such thing happening, leave aside the commercial aspects, what do you think that could mean for you as an artist?
Me personally, I think that it's interesting because in the legacy, my idea of the legacy art world is always as an outsider looking in, and my outside view is that I think that it's quite not strict, but there is definitely a protocol in the sort of rhetoric of art, the gesture. There is a kind of protocol that's accepted, and anything that fits outside of that doesn't really do so well. In the crypto art space, it always has the potential to be completely open and for all these different disparate markets to kind of pop up. And it has always been like that, and I don't see that changing. And that's a really good thing. In the space, there is everyone from animators to designers to and there are things that are gamified, things that are heavily reliant on metaverse and online worlds, and things that kind of transcend all the different metaverses, or could do, and just thousands of little tiny islands of interests, and all these kind of micro communities popping up. And that's really, really interesting, because it becomes something unmanageable and uncontrollable. And I like that idea, because it creates a free market. And for me as an artist, that's great, because it means that instead of having to adhere to some protocol, I can kind of set my own agenda, and find the collectors can find me who will really like my work. And anyone can do that. And there could be just like the whole range, from like very obtuse conceptualism to very easily accessible design, to high concept fine art. And it's all there. And I love that. Not to mention, didn't mention 3D. I mean, like wearables and all kinds of things. So it's just crazy. I think everything will be tokenized in the future, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, it totally opens up so many opportunities, not just for individuals and artists, but also for groups of people that are within some specific sectors. That I think it's going to mean that things will be shifting, and the way we communicate and interact with one another, and what we value, and for what reason. So there are a lot of question marks, I guess, that we could have towards the future, and we can maybe have another chat in a year's time and see what will happen, by then, what will have happened, has happened by then.
There could be talent that we never would ever have expected, that would have never have found an audience, because of the blockchain. Like there's this whole thing of outsider art. There is no outsider art now. Like, you could be literally anyone with a MetaMask and just, and it's just crazy.
So there's a question that came through the live, which I'm just going to pull up on the screen, because I think it's an interesting one. Do you feel that not really knowing the artist, in terms of most of the artists don't show that face or say that real name, is more or less appealing to the new collectors coming into the scene?
It's interesting. I'm not sure I can speak for collectors, but I would say, going back to my idea of trusting a face, a friendly face,
Mhm.
an artist can only benefit from putting themselves out there. Anonymity is very chic and very fashionable, and that only has value really if you're prolific. So someone like Banksy, who is anonymous,
Mhm.
uh, is someone who has all this history behind him, and anonymity isn't so valuable if you're, an unknown. So I think that a new artist can only benefit from showing their face and from communicating and using their voice, power of the voice to speak, and being as um, as articulate as possible about what they do, because I think it does add trust, and it does add ultimately adds value.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with you to some extent. Although I have seen, I'm just playing the other side now, and I've seen people not showing their own identity, and I think that it could be quite appealing simply because not knowing who's on the other side, it could make you imagine anything you want. So it gives you the freedom of seeing the art and imagining who's done it, who's created it. And actually, the purpose of this series, going behind the screens, is exactly looking at who's behind what we see on screen,
Mm.
who's the creator. And yes, remaining anonymous, I think it's a choice. But I would say that if everyone would go by that, there won't be so much interest, because what makes the space so interesting is also the personalities of the artist and the personalities of the people that inhabit this space in the virtual space. So
Yeah.
these conversations we're having, the talks, and all the momentum that keeps growing, it's there because there are people behind it. If we
Mm.
were going to be bought, let's say, even though we would imagine there's a human being behind it, we wouldn't be so sure. We couldn't be so sure. So I think personalities are huge factors, even though not showing that, it could be interesting sometimes, but I wouldn't say it could work for all. So it
Yeah, I
varies.
like your point. I like the fact that the space offers the choice, definitely, where you could be anonymous, and it could be a bot, for all we know.
Yeah, that might be
Yeah,
interesting as well.
it's nice that the artist gets to choose, because previously it perhaps wouldn't have been so possible to do that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure. If you
Mm.
think about it, years ago, if you wanted to have a name and establish a name for yourself, you would need to be pretty much visible, and that was kind of what they were teaching you at school, that you had to be out there, be present in all these social occasions. And now you have the choice using social media
Mm.
and these kind of, having virtual encounters and pretty
Now you've
much
got to be in all the right
your
Zoom calls.
identity because it's cool, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You can go by different names and cover your face, or yeah, it's interesting. And it's also like playing a safe game, because you could do and say whatever you want without knowing who you really are. So
Mm,
I guess
mm.
there's a lot of thoughts going into that.
I think
Interesting
that
question. Yeah.
in the future, I see, a famous artist doing like a side project anonymously. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's almost like, like Blur, they went into Gorillas, and it was like their sort of anonymous side. They kind of rebranded themselves, and you could do that in blockchain. In blockchain art. The only reason why I'm out there is because I was out there before. I already had an online presence, and I've just been, I've been chipping away at the old banknotes for a very long time. So there's no hiding that fact. And also,
Hmm.
it's it's nice to be publicly facing because just because of the nature of my work. You know, when you print something that looks like money, it does have that feel of being illicit. It does have that, you know, it's kind of like right on the edge. You know, am I doing something wrong here? And you know, it's good to be. I think it's good for me to be out there for that reason.
Mm-hmm. There's another question coming up from the live, which is, what do you think will be the tipping point for crypto art to go mainstream?
Yeah, probably like a world famous artist or designer, you know, tokenizing. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
or
would
high profile collector.
help.
Yeah.
What else? Sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying, Tom.
The last thing I said was high profile collector, maybe someone who is already in the art world as a you know, like top 10 collectors, and they announce that they're, you know, that they have been, that would be even better if they have been amassing a quiet collection of crypto art anonymously. That could be interesting. And I'm really interested to see how fast that comes. This is inevitable, but I'm really interested to see how fast that comes.
Well, I think last week has been quite, you know, a hot week in that sense. So I'm
Yeah.
sure it's going to be pretty soon.
Yeah.
Soon. Now, Tom, I want to hear from you, since we've got about 10-15 minutes left. I just want to really see what you are working on, and I want to know where we can find your work, and if there's an artist that you would love to collaborate with, even if it's in the crypto space, then maybe we can say out loud, or if there's any artists from the past maybe that you wished you could have worked with and collaborate with.
Cool.
So to start with, tell us about your current project and what that is, and if you want to show us something, please do.
Sure. Well, the first thing I'll say is, I've literally 10 minutes before this conversation, I tokenized something on KnownOrigin, and I kind of wanted to capture the occasion of this talk, and it's a design that I did. It was one of the designs that got me headhunted into the banknote industry originally. So it's a design that's never been tokenized, and I did it in 2013, and so it's the first time it's sort of seen the blockchain. And if you go on KnownOrigin, KnownOrigin site, search for Tom Badley, you'll see it's the first thing that comes up. It's a peacock with sort of a banknote design around it, and overlaid with the Ethereum chart. It's a bar chart of Ethereum, and the chart starts when I entered. It actually starts the week that I attended that CoinFest event and met the KnownOrigin founders, and right up to the present day. So the piece is called My Life in Crypto Art, or A Life in Crypto Art. So it's kind of like a snapshot of this, of like the time bracket between now and the time I got started in crypto art. So I've just finished that. The other things that I'm working on at the moment, I'm busy completing a load of portraits that I've just been commissioned to do. I put out a call last weekend to basically add a printing plate that I was going to put through a press. This is, you know, my method, and I had a space on the plate for just another design. And I said, if anyone wants their portrait authentically engraved on a banknote design, I'm happy to do it at an extreme discount. And I was flooded with interest, and I had enough portraits to do a completely new plate. So I'm working on that. It's a hell of a lot of work, but I'm getting through it slowly. The other thing I'm doing is working on first kind of large scale, really ambitious works that will have a lot more detail, and will be getting away from just the simple portrait and actually expanding into bigger, bolder, grander subjects and images. And I'm really excited to release that pretty soon. and that will be inspired by. It will have classical themes. So I've gone back to antiquity, back to classicism, where everyone goes, and eventually. And yeah, I've got some new ambitious work that I can't wait to tokenize. That should be ready in the next few weeks. Then I'm working on a series of nine designs that will all focus on. The series is called The Death of Luxury, and it's all about, in the wake of COVID and this whole crash, like the tenuous nature of the luxury goods market, and how luxury now is being literally digitized through crypto art, because art is a luxury item, and now we are purveyors and collectors of digital luxury. So that's what that series will be about, and it's never ending. There's a lot.
I'm so pleased to hear that you have already so many projects you are currently working on, and you have upcoming also projects that you're eager to get started.
Sure.
I've also added down here a reference to where people can find your work. So that's your page here on KnownOrigin. So if you guys are interested in looking through Tom's work and collecting, please make sure to visit that link. You haven't answered yet my last question.
Oh.
If you were going to collaborate with an artist, from the past, from the future, or from the present, who would it be?
Well, disappointing answer is that I don't have anyone specific, but I'm really, really fascinated by programmatic art. And the reason for that is there are visual effects that I aspire to in programmatic art that I'll never be able to do with my conventional design, my somewhat conventional design abilities. So yeah, I'm really interested in finding, like, what is the artwork? Is it the visual effect, or is it the code? Or I think that could be really interesting. So programmers and coders and people with a real solid understanding of that kind of stuff, all that fascinates me, and it's a totally unexplored area. Aside from that, I would love to build something in one of these metaverses. I'm always up for that, and it's something that I haven't really done so much, but that's got my attention. I think producing something in collaboration that's architectural in some way would be really awesome. Or perhaps taking if there's anyone who does like the 3D drawing in VR, I think that's just incredible. So I'm so up for that. Creating a 3D engraving, that you can walk around. This sort of Baroque sculpture that's an engraving would just be incredible. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely fascinating to now see objects and things floating around in a 3D environment. I have to say, for some, like myself, it could be, it could trigger a bit of dizziness. I think we still need to adapt to new dimensional spaces, but it's definitely interesting to really delve into the actual creation, the actual art, the fact that you can walk through it and seeing it all around you. It's definitely fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, someone just popped in my head. An artist who's dead that I would have loved to collaborate with is Salvador
Dali. Yes, I would imagine why. I think
Salvador Dali he's my favorite. It's not necessarily his art. It's who he was as a person. He didn't really care, and he was someone who started out life as against the system, Marxist, and then he died. He died a Catholic and fascist. So he
360 journey, right? He went through everything.
I think at one point he bought Hitler's Volkswagen, and he praised Hitler and all that kind of stuff. Like, very, very interesting character, and yeah, just nuts. But I like that because as a young person, he that kind of life inspired me as an artist. Just carved his own way. He did whatever he wanted to do, and
That's true.
And also, he found himself in doing lots and lots of different things that hardly anyone knows about. I mean, no one knows really that Salvador Dali wrote cookbooks. He wrote and published cookbooks, and he also designed
I
the.
knew that, but yes, that's actually one of those fun facts that people don't know much about it. But yes,
Yeah,
I did.
that's
I
for the
did.
art nerds. It's for the art nerds.
Yeah.
No, he did loads of stuff and loads of design, and he did advertising as well. And you know, he did an advert for. He collaborated with Alka-Seltzer, the I think the indigestion tablets. He did an advert for them in like the 60s or something. And he was on game shows, and this was all before Warhol got started. So like he was almost like the preeminent pop artist. But at the same time, he was really heavily into classicism and all this traditionalism. And I think in what I do is that here I am, I'm making these digital engravings. It's a 19th century, or even before that, it has a 500-year history, intaglio printing. And I actually do intaglio printing. It's not just digital art; it is physically printed. And at the same time, I'm tokenizing this as well. So there is that same, not comparing myself to Salvador Dali. I'm just drawing a comparison in terms of like mixing traditionalism and innovation, and that fascinates me.
Yes, that's what characterizes your work, and that's, I think, the beauty that we see in what you produce. But I think today we've learned so much about your background, your inspirations, that I felt so much in love with all those aspects that now looking at your art, it makes sense. And there's plenty more stories that I could picture in my head just by looking at the works you have created and that you're going to create, which I'm even more eager to see. So no pressure that, Tom.
Thanks.
But yes, it was such an interesting journey that we took during this conversation. I much appreciated your time and the fact that we have this space that KnownOrigin made available for us to have these conversations. I really thank you for that. And if there's anything you'd like to share as a thought from you to conclude. And also thanking everyone that's been watching us live. This video is now being recorded, so it's available for anyone who wants to catch up on our conversation. But I'll leave to you, Tom, the last word on this talk. If there's anything you'd like to share to fellow artists, collectors, and anyone out there interested in art that you wish to leave us with.
Just to say that this format is great, and thank you so much to KnownOrigin and to you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and these are really exciting times in the history of the world and the history of art, and we're all strapped in this ride together. So enjoy it, make the most of it.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's been a great pleasure being here tonight with you. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.